We can do this quickly. Let's get it resolved. And with that, I yield the floor.
Mr. President, in a few moments, I'm going to yield the floor to Senator Kaine to make a unanimous consent request that has been cleared by both sides, and I'm very pleased about that. This is in regards to the S-24 legislation that I have filed with several of my colleagues. I particularly want to thank Senator Kaine, but also want to thank my colleagues, Senator Van Hollen and Senator Mark Warner, for their work, as well as Senator Collins and others in this body that have co-sponsored that legislation. It's legislation very similar to what we passed in the last hours of the 115th Congress by unanimous consent. It does what I think all of us have said we want to make sure is done, and that is that when we reopen government, those who have been working without pay and those that are on furlough without pay will get their back pay. Now, that's, I think, at least some assurance to our workforce, our government workforce, that when we finally reopen government, they know that they'll be getting their paychecks. And I think that's an very important point to give them at least that comfort. I don't want to minimize the risk factors that we have to the 800,000 federal workers who are not getting their paychecks. Just today, I got a letter from a constituent, and I'm just going to read it very briefly. As an air traffic controller and a Maryland constituent, I want you to know how the partial government shutdown is affecting me and my family. Today, I received my earnings and leave statement from the Department of Transportation, indicating I received zero for my last 2 weeks of working at the FAA Washington en route Air Traffic Control Center in Leesburg, Virginia. I have proudly gone to work for this job that I love and have always maintained the highest level of safety. My husband, Brad Starkey, is also a controller with me at the Washington Center, and his earnings and leave statement was for $1.34. We cannot sustain our financial obligations on a total of $1.34 for our last 2 weeks of work. We recently were able to build a new house to try to start a family, and we still have increased financial obligations because of that and all that entails. In addition, my family, my brother-in-law and father have minimal income now, and we are supporting them. My father is 69 years old and currently has an enlarged hernia that requires an operation. He has no health insurance and no income. He lives in a nursing home and is on even more medication now. The letter goes on and on and on about how this family is being adversely affected. It ends by saying, end this shutdown now. I couldn't agree more. And I would urge our colleagues, hopefully in the next couple days, let us, and hope even before that, to end the shutdown, but at least as a result of the unanimous consent request that will be made very shortly, which has cleared both sides, we can at least tell them that the pay is coming. I see the distinguished majority leaders here. We had some words earlier. I want to thank the majority leader for accommodating this unanimous consent. It's consistent with what the leader has said in the past, that we will make sure that our workers get paid when the government is opened, and I would yield the floor.
Mr. President.
The majority leader.
I had an opportunity to talk to President Trump a few moments ago and wanted to indicate to our colleagues that he will sign the bill that we've been discussing here to guarantee that government workers who've been displaced as a result of the shutdown will ultimately be compensated. And so I want to ease their anxiety about that particular possibility. And with that in mind, I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of calendar number 3, S-24.
The clerk will report.
Calendar number 3, S-24, a bill to provide for the compensation of federal and other government employees affected by lapses in appropriations.
Is there objection to proceeding to the measure? Without objection, the Senate will proceed.
I know no further debate on the bill.
Is there further debate? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The bill is passed.
I further ask the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Without objection.
President.
The senator for Virginia.
Mr. President, just briefly, I also want to extend my gratitude to the Majority Leader for working with us on this matter. I alerted both caucuses yesterday that I plan to object to adjourning for the weekend on the grounds that tomorrow more than 800,000 federal employees will stop getting paychecks. This has already started, according to the words of my colleague from Maryland. And also on Saturday, the shutdown will achieve the dubious distinction of being the longest shutdown in the history of the United States. So yesterday I alerted both caucuses that my plan was to object to an adjournment. I filed that objection. The Majority Leader then engaged in discussion together with the Minority Leader and others about, is there something we can do to send a message to these people, many of whom are under very dire circumstances, and they've written me too about postponing medical procedures and not buying medications for their kids. Is there something that we can do that can send them some message of comfort that they will receive their paychecks, if not tomorrow, but they will be made whole? And over the course of the afternoon, as we've talked about it, we thought the best message that we could send, and I'm glad that we were able to send it by voice vote unanimously from this body, is that they will be paid. When we reopen, they will be paid. That is not the same comfort as getting the paycheck. It's not the same comfort as knowing when the shutdown will be over and when they can go back to try to keep serving American citizens, but having the certainty that it will be paid is something that we can do for these people. And I appreciate the Majority Leader working with this. The S-24 bill that Senator Cardin is the sponsor of, and I'm a co-sponsor, does good work in this regard. And I think we can send some people a little bit of a signal on what will be a tough day tomorrow. We can send them a little bit of a signal that we're going to be there for them and they can count on the paycheck. And with that, Mr. President, I thank my colleagues for working together on this. I yield the floor.